the start of the video, I do want to mention one thing. This team has crazy runes. You're probably not going to be able to replicate the runes. However, still check the video because it might give you certain ideas for teams that you can maybe craft, for certain things that you can maybe use to actually boost your current team. There's always ideas that I would like to share, and that's also why I share my progress of the teams I make, the iterations I make, and all of that kind of stuff. Because with that, you can actually improve your teams as well. Maybe you don't get a step-by-step guys like, okay, just rune everything like XYZ. It's very easy to rune like a Tricaro, like a Vert, whatever. Maybe you have to think a little bit about it yourself, but you can have like a guideline ideas of seeing like, okay, what is possible? What are the mechanics out there? What are the issues that are still out there? Because there's still slight issues to the team. And because of that, you can maybe overcome it and make your own team better. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, like and subscribe and enjoy. Yo, what's up guys? New video, and we actually have a sub 30-second team. And that's not this team per se, because this video is going to be split in two parts. First part is going to showcase a different team, but I still want to showcase that, and I didn't really want to make two separate videos on the two different teams. Mainly because, well, the new team is sub 30 seconds and that one is really insane. And that doesn't have Deborah, that doesn't have Leah, and that doesn't have an LD5 in there. Yeah, slight disclaimer, it has runes that you probably know. But besides that point, I will also show a runed version of a guildie of mine that has slightly worse runes. Still pretty good runes, like, don't get me wrong, those are still pretty insane runes, but also showcasing that that still can work, and it just works slightly a bit slower on that other team. But I also kind of wanted to showcase this team just to share the process of any teams and how things are developed and anything like that. So this is a team that I craft myself. I have like a pre-recorded run. And at first I was actually thinking about, okay, I want to have Julie one-shot the waves because you can use the Madeline cookie to boost up Julie, and then boosting up Julie might actually be able to one-shot the waves. That was my first idea. That's not what I went with in the end. I do use Prilea in here, which is an insanely good unit. I do use the Homunculus in here, which is once again insanely good unit because at some point, this was specifically tuned where if he dies, he still gets 2 turns. And if he dies and he still gets 2 turns specifically, that does mean that he's most likely going to do an S1 and then an S3 because he gets imperfect AI range for the boss being low enough HP. So that was pretty interesting. But this team is based on, I want to have Teshar clear the wave. So technically, what I'm doing right here is what a lot of people have also been thinking about, like, oh, I'm gonna Julie Lucian, and then Lucian can one-shot the waves. Technically, yes, but you can also have Teshar kind of do that in a certain way. Plus, Teshar lead is more interesting. Plus, Teshar does a lot more damage on the boss than a Lucian would ever do. So that was kind of my idea with this team in general. But then again, you kind of have the issue where this team can go a little bit slower, and the time that I actually showed all the way at the end was the time of this recorded run. So this were the only 2 runs that I think were going slower throughout this whole sequence. But I do want to keep in mind, there is a team coming after this that's faster, and I do want to showcase both of the teams. I'll probably just put timestamps and that kind of stuff. But I just want to share this video, or this part as well. And let's actually see if the run goes proper. So there we have like a 2-shot of the wave, which you kind of want. In most teams, you kind of do want Prilea to move first. It is also possible for this Teshar to actually kill the boss straight up. So that is pretty interesting. Thing is, where it goes a bit slower is where Teshar doesn't start killing those, but it's still relatively fast. Like Prilea itself does pretty good damage too. So with that, we have something nice going on. Also, a thing I did here for this run, I made the Homunculus Violet. And is that something that's recommended to do? Maybe not, but if the Homunculus is violent, he has another chance to actually go for any skill, and that kind of prevent his pretty shitty AI actually. But the thing is why I went for Vio is because I re-upped a lot of Vio runes, and I never kept any rune, or I never sold any rune that I thought had value. And even the weird things with like high quad roll crit damages and that kind of weird shit, because, well, I farmed way more Vio than I farmed anything else, especially Rage. So for that reason, I have a lot of Vio runes that have pretty sick stats in general. So I have like a quad roll on the slot 3 in crit damage, I have a quad roll on the slot 1 in crit damage, I have a quad roll attack on slot 4 crit damage, all of that kind of Gucci stuff. So that actually makes it that my best Vio set on damage is probably better than that, what is it, 40% crit damage that you lack from not having Rage. So it will be, sure, it will be worse, definitely. It's definitely going to be worse. But then again, with that, I can also give my best my best rage runes to Teshar. So that is something interesting that you guys could look at as well. Because Homunculus, sure, you want to have him on a specific damage threshold. But if he doesn't add that much more for going a lot more damage, you can actually look into that Vio set. Because Vio set for that unit might be pretty nice. So as you can see, we're getting a whole bunch of runs that are like around like 26-ish seconds. We're getting a bunch of runs that go like a little bit over like 30 seconds. So this averages out on like 31 seconds. But this is also not the final team that I want to showcase. But just the team that I want to showcase. And I think I do showcase the runes at some point later as well. So yeah, averages 31, fastest 23. Looking at the runes. So yeah, like I said before, these might be runes that you don't necessarily have. Interesting thing here on the Teshar, for the Teshar, because of the correct element and because of the leader skill and because Julie pretty much clears the side crystals already that don't have the correct element, I can go for a 52 crit rate by minimum. So this thing has a lot of attack, a lot of crit damage, and pretty low crit rate. If we look at the Julie is pretty high on attack, and then artifacts also additional damage by attack mainly. There's actually, I have a 15 additional damage from attack and then a 9 on the water next to it, so that's pretty insane. The Prilea is just a triple fight, and max accuracy. Max accuracy does mean that you have to have the 35 accuracy. And this is the Homunculus, what I was talking about. It is Vio, but it's still 262 and 2314. Maybe I've overdone it a little bit. But yeah, this is like a 33 crit damage. This is 31 crit damage. This is a 44 attack. So yeah, and then I think that people really keep forgetting is like people say like, oh, I don't have those rage runes. The part about all of these dungeon teams is not about your rage runes. It is about your broken sets. My broken sets are often adding way more stats than my rage stats. Because in the end, like I mentioned before, I do not farm Necro. Like, I have some good Necro runes, but I do not really farm Necro. I farmed a lot of other random shit. So that's where you see, I keep everything that has high value. And the only thing, like, if you say you farm a lot, and if you say you cannot build any good damage set, that means you have been selling too much stuff that might actually have been good for that specific damage set. Like this one, for example, it's just a very weird rune, but it is a lot of extra stats. So definitely keep in mind, it is not about your rage runes, it's about your broken sets. For that reason, I also highly recommend to check what is the maximum amount of damage on the rune optimizer rather than just trying to add a build together yourself. Because if you add a build together yourself, you're not going to use all of those broken sets. You're going to be forcing yourself into Rage Blade everywhere. Those broken sets are mostly better than Rage Blade, especially if you don't really need a crit rate as in a Teshar. Then when I was about to make that video saying like, okay, I have like a 31-ish second average, I'm mostly going like 32, 33 second average team. Someone sent me this video, and this video is pretty interesting because it uses the Teshar and then boosting back the Teshar to clear the waves that way. So you don't need the Julie, you don't need a Leah, you don't need all of that good stuff. Plus the interesting about this team, it doesn't use a Deborah. So there's no Deborah, there's no Leah, there's no LD5. There is Teshar, however. That part is definitely true. But this actually ran for this guy, I think it ran like a 28 second-ish or something like that. Interesting thing to keep in mind is people were saying like, they actually showed like a clip or they showed like a replay of saying like, okay, people were saying this is like a 28 second average team always. That part is not true. And the main reason that I can say it is that this actually at the start of the clip shows that his previous run was 50. Where does this run go wrong? And this run can go very wrong on that. You need the right skills from the Lin and you need the right skills from the Homunculus, which, as you guys probably know if you've been running this for a while, these skills don't always happen like that. Definitely not. Like both of them have pretty shit AIs. So I run that team. It went pretty nice and I saw like, wait, but I see an upgrade potential. And the upgrade potential is actually very simple. But then I thought it is not possible. Can you simply say like, okay, I replace the Lin with a Luna. But the issue what you normally have with a Luna is Luna will use her skill 3 on this stage. And then she will not have the possibility to go for a skill 2 because you need like specific tuning for that. You could make that work. But if she does that, then just a Luna doesn't do that much damage. So you kind of want Luna to go skill 3 into skill 2 in this stage. And then in the final boss stage, she will have her skill 3 again. But then I noticed something very specifically what happens with the Teshar, and that's also people have been asking me, can you replace the Teshar? No, you cannot. Because the interesting thing about this whole team is, look at what happens here. There is one unit left with very low HP. That is exactly the point where Luna can throw her skill 2 and get her skill 3 back for the next stage. Which also means that we can look at this. And this is what I've just been running on the background. We have a 27-second minimum and 28.5-second average. Can I say this is a 28.5-second average team? No, I cannot. Because there's one more thing about this team which makes it slightly different, and I will showcase the runes, I will showcase the run, but there's one thing about this team which makes it slightly RNG, and we're just going to go through a bunch of runs, and we're going to see if we get that RNG moment. So in this case, I do have skins on the Homunculus and skins on Perna, or not Perna, Teshar. I think the Teshar skin is faster. The Homunculus skin is slightly faster, so it doesn't really add much. So we have Luna going for an S3 over there. But the interesting thing is, okay, we have that skill going, we have that skill going, we have one hit left, Luna gets the skill back, that, okay, perfect. We do this, that is nice. We have that hit in, we have the S3, and this is low enough HP that my Homunculus always goes S3, always. So this team really shines on having the better runes you have, the better this team will do. I actually had to slightly tune down my Teshar because my Teshar was clearing the wave. And in this case, you do not want your Teshar to clear the wave. You want your Teshar to clear wave 1, but you want your Teshar not to clear wave 3. And that is definitely the interesting take. You can also say, like, for example, can I put Deborah over the Homunculus? Technically, yes. It lowers the rune requirements, especially for the Teshar. But you have to lower the rune requirements for the Teshar a lot, because my Teshar was one-shotting mid-boss, or at least double-shotting mid-boss, which you don't want to have happening. Because if you double-shot mid-boss, then, yeah, other shit just goes wrong, pretty much. So that is an issue, and therefore you can have also the Teshar is worse at clearing the wave. So, yeah, there's a bunch of things to that, because if your Teshar wants, or like, double turns the mid-boss, your Luna will use her skill on the third wave rather than on the final boss, which you don't want to have happening. So if you really tune down your Teshar even more, you could make that work with the Deborah. But in all honesty, I don't recommend you to. And the reason why I don't recommend you to use Deborah in this team, which is actually interesting, this team runs best without a Deborah. But the main reason that I would say, okay, you want to keep that Homunculus in, plus the Deborah, it's because, or not the Deborah, the Luna. The Luna creates perfect AI in most cases, depending on your rune quality. For me, always. For other people, quite a bit less, I've seen. But it's still pretty good to have good odds of your Homunculus doing the right skill. But the issue is, with Deborah in the Homunculus spot, you don't have the failsafe. Because this team doesn't fail as well. It's 100%. Like, I have not seen this fail ever. And the main reason for that is that what can fail in this whole run? Prilea is not 100%. Prilea is 2 times 95 on the S1, 2 times 100 on the S2. We have 15 checkers, that definitely is still a thing. The S3 is 100%, so for that reason, you can technically fail armor break. It is very unlikely, but it does happen. And if you don't have your Homunculus in that team, if you miss that armor break, your team is going to fail instantly, 100%. So that is definitely a factor that's in there. And there's one more factor of something that we haven't seen so far yet. And that also highly slows down the run. And therefore, for that reason, it's a very small chance to happen. But it does happen. And therefore, I cannot claim it as a 26 or 27 seconds average team or 28-second average team. Because there's one more thing. And that is Prilea using skill 3. On units. Technically, you can overcome that by slightly better runes as well. But if I added slightly better runes, my Teshar kind of started clearing wave 3, which was also not really the case. So that's maybe a fine-tuning thing that's kind of hard to find. But what is the issue with Prilea? Prilea is skill 3, always armor breaks if she hits something that she cannot stun. In that case, it also does mean that if she can stun something, aka these units, she might not armor break. That means that my Teshar will probably not kill if he goes for an S1, because the damage from S1 is a lot less than the damage from S2, especially in the first rotation. If he doesn't kill in the first rotation and he gets the attack buff from the Konamiya, Konomiya will actually give him attack buff while not having skill 3 up, because he needs to kill something for his skill 3 to come off cooldown. So in this case, Bear Hunt is the skill that might go wrong, but that is a single skill with still an armor break. So it doesn't go wrong that often, but for that reason, you want to keep this homunculus in, because that homunculus is, everything goes wrong, the homunculus still has double life to actually clear the boss. In this case, might you ask, do you still have that crazy violent homunculus? No, I don't. So in this case, we only see right runs. I kind of want to show you one run where it goes wrong, because I think it's interesting to see where it goes wrong. But also, to be honest, like, sure, you're going to see runes and you're going to be like, yeah, fuck this team, I'm out. Wait for it. I will showcase runes that are slightly worse that you can maybe work with. You are working with Teshar lead, which makes it a lot easier to get in like specific crit rates that, or you just want to add a lot of crit damage, a lot of attack. Also, a thing to keep in mind with Luna, with Lin, you're very focused on crit damage. All of the scaling comes from crit damage, whereas Luna, Teshar, and also the homunculus have pretty good scaling from attack. So don't waste out on. Don't just go like, oh, I need the highest amount of crit damage ever. No, actually calculate it in swap or just try it out or something like that. Just try out to find out like, okay, what is the sweet spot of like how much crit damage, how much attack, and that kind of stuff. Also, I've been seeing like other runs where people have Prileas on like insane speed sets to go like many ticks ahead and that kind of nonsense. You don't need that for this team. You also don't really need good fight runes. You need, well, the Konomiya has just like literally, he has in the right speed tuning of whatever next to that. Like I made mine tanky for whatever reason. I think it even slows down the run if things go wrong. But yeah, but as you can see, perfect AI on that homunculus. Like all the time. I think we've been getting a run that's been perfect throughout all along. So let's actually see if we can do one more run. And then we would actually, I think this would be a sub 28 average if this goes right all the time. Okay, this is where it goes wrong. This is where it goes wrong. No, my Teshar's still strong enough. So we didn't have an armor break. Because of that armor break, your Teshar might not kill. Because of your Teshar might not kill, the whole rotation kind of goes off. But this team is strong enough to recover that. Okay, we go double wrong. Yeah, in this case goes wrong. Finally, thank you. So in this case, it goes wrong on double occasion. This actually goes very wrong. Wait. Okay, normally one of the two side crystals dies, and it doesn't go wrong that bad. But let's actually see how bad this is if we want to clear the stage still. And that's where you need that failsafe. So now everyone starts using skills left, right, center that totally do not make any sense. So in this case, we have the Great Earthquake. That is totally fine. We should be in range where we double lap the boss right now. So if we go for skill 3, we still clear. So that is exactly, thank you. Like I couldn't have predicted it better. This is where everything goes wrong. I couldn't clear the waves with the Teshar, and therefore I get a way slower run, and therefore I cannot claim this to be like insanely fast, because we have that one run once in like a 10 that goes slower. And if we can check, we can see 27, 27, 27, 27, 27, all the way 27 until the last one, which was a 49, equaling in like a 30-second average. This happens like 1 in 10. That also means that I can call this a sub 30 seconds average. I have seen this go for like 28. Like if we had that last run also being good, we would have seen a sub 28 seconds. I've seen this go like pretty bad, and then we go like 31, 32-ish if it goes multiple times wrong. So I would say sub 30-second average, but it's just below it, just below it. So let's actually look at the runes. And while looking at the runes, you might be like, yeah, fuck this shit. But once again, I'll showcase runes of someone else, a guildie of mine that can also make it work. He showed me like a 31-second average team. And the only thing he said, like, my homunculus doesn't always skill 3 because he doesn't deal enough damage on the Luna. Mine does, however. So what do we have on the Teshar? The Teshar is pretty similar to the previous build from what you've seen. It's a 260, but a lot of extra attack. It's 14 on water, which this artifact is by all means kind of blue. It's not that great. This artifact, I did focus more on S1 damage, because the S1 damage, like, if he does skill 2, he does more than enough damage. But if he does skill 1 and he can't clear it because of that, that's why you need that extra damage in, and that's where I focused on skill 1 extra damage, and then these two, actually all these three, help towards the S1 dealing more damage for the Teshar. We're gonna keep the Lunas less just for fun. This thing is once again a triple fight. It's a 118, so it goes actually 1 tick ahead. It needs to be 223 plus, like in total, if I'm not mistaken. So this thing is exactly 223 plus. And then we have the 35 on this, which is important. and we have the crit rate that needs to be 52. Interesting about Prilea and also interesting about Teshar is they will always focus the golems. They will never go for the crystals. Why? Because of right element. And because of that, you can also say 52 on this accuracy. And then it's just adding some crit damages, whatever, like some damage water. Not even sure. I have crit damage less on this. Maybe crit damage more would make more sense on you. You don't really want to go like, oh, I just do skill 3 or skill 1 crit damage. No, you kind of want to go for crit damage more, or like own skill crit damage. Those kind of things help more, but since this is a good combination of everything, I like the good combination of everything artifacts in most cases. As mentioned before, Konami has just the right speed tuning. It moves just after the Teshar, and that's about it. Artifacts wise, I didn't even give anything, pretty much. Like, doesn't really matter. The Homunculus, I did change it back to Rage, because I don't need the Vio one in here. I just need the Homunculus if things go wrong, him to clean up shit. And that's just pretty much about it. So I just gave him the 52 as well. And then just adding in like a bunch of stats. And then we also have damage water, which is also once again not the greatest one. And then this one I actually did kind of spread it out once again. There's crit damage less, there's first skill crit damage skill 3, crit damage skill 2. So in the first sense, this doesn't look like a great artifact, but actually everything is cohesive working towards him doing more damage. Then we have the crazy one of the bunch. And the crazy one of the bunch is a 296 on a 2188. As I mentioned before, I have some crazy rage or some crazy crit damages on Vio runes, so I do use that one. This is the rune I talked about earlier. So I do have pretty crazy runes on that. She has pretty nutty runes in general. She has all of my good rage runes that I have. And she has pretty good artifacts. So the left artifact is crit damage more, crit damage less, attack on water, and a crit damage own. This one is crit damage skill 2, own skill crit damage skill 3, and crit damage less. Everything cohesive. Like, there's not a wasted line on this Luna. So yeah, with this Luna, you actually push towards having perfect AI. With that perfect AI, your Homunculus will always do its skill. And the only thing that could go wrong, and maybe is fixable later at a stage, I'm not entirely sure, is the Teshar being able to clear waves if the Prilea messed up armor break. That's pretty much the only thing that can go wrong throughout this whole way, or like this whole dungeon right now, because everything else is pretty much perfect AI related. So that's pretty nice. So this run is really insane. So let me show you the runes of Guildy of mine that said like, okay, I can also clear it, I can also make this team, but on slightly worse runes. They're still pretty good runes though. Okay, here we go right away for showcasing that the run failed once again. Let's see how we recover in this case. So in this case, we recover with Teshar not dying because the side crystals were actually stunned. Would you say you have to add certain stuff to have that fixed maybe to stun the side crystals more? No. So this is going to be like what, 33 seconds still. So this was still pretty fast. Why? Because, well, the Teshar didn't die. Simple as that. So that still definitely does work. So these are some of the runes that my guildie used to clear it as well. His Teshar is slightly faster than mine. You don't need... Oh wait, let me check actually. How fast was my Teshar? Yeah, I made my Teshar slightly slower. His Teshar is on the tick right after the Prilea, because he thought he maybe needed that for speeding up and then Teshar not being led by something else when he gets 100 attack bar. I noticed if you just put him on 61, and I don't remember exactly what speed my Luna was at. I can give that a double check as well. It was already fine enough that I could not have him on the next tick, but just slightly slower, and that worked. I actually missed the build by, like, I was planning to do it by tick as well at first, but I slightly missed the build, and then I was like, wait, it actually still works, so I'm fine with it. So you don't need... The 74 makes him that he's on the next tick, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I think you need 73, so you need him to be like 187 for the next tick, but it's not necessary to actually focus on that. You do, however, need him to have 67 crit rate. Because if you go to 52 crit rate, you're not going to crit the side crystals and you're going to fail because of that. So the Teshar in this build actually does need the 67 crit rate. His Homunculus was a 281, and then it was also lacking about like a 250 attack-ish? Yeah, something along that line. So yeah, I had 2188, so yeah, 250. So his attack is quite a bit less, his crit damage was quite a bit less, but still pretty nice rune. And as you can see, once again, these are broken sets. Like, you have to focus on these broken sets to get these good runes in. And then this one, same thing again, broken set. So especially if you don't need the high crit rate, everything is like a broken set. So definitely focus on your broken sets. Those are the strongest. And then we have a close to 2.1 and a 269 on this. But he did mention that, I think in the first picture that he showed me, he had like a 31 second average. This can probably go higher than that. This could go like probably 32, 33, 34 second average even. Because your homunculus is very likely to go for a skill 1, just mainly the skill 1. And because of the skill 1, he's not going to kill. With that, you have the rotation where the boss starts countering. It takes more time, but you still win because the homunculus does take enough turns afterwards to still clear the boss. You could say if your homunculus is strong enough to have your Luna S3 into an homunculus S3, where your homunculus will actually clear the boss on a Vio set. And that's once again why I recommend make that homunculus Vio if he can clear with a Luna S3 into a homunculus S3. If he cannot clear that, you have to go for that rage set, that is for sure. But if we look at this rage set, it is somewhat similar to my Vio set that I had on him. I think the Vio set, wait, let me actually get that one back. Yeah, so this is the clip of me using the Vio 1. And funny enough, my Vio homunculus was pretty much 200 something attack higher and 7 crit damage less. So yeah, that's definitely, if you say you farm a lot and you never farmed Necro and therefore you never actually farmed like any good rage runes, maybe try out your Vio set. Like if you are like smart and you kept all of your good Vio runes, and this is definitely something you might want to give a try. Keep in mind, the homunculus still has to one-shot, or, well, finish the boss with his skill. If he doesn't finish the boss, you have to go for the extra damage. You have to go for that, what's it called? You have to go for the extra stats of getting in the rage. But that's definitely something that's interesting to look at. So yeah, that's also it for this video. Once again, it is a team without a Deborah, without a Leah, without LD5s, but you need the Teshar. Luna was HOH. People should probably have that. But it has fucking crazy runes. So can everyone replicate this? No, probably not. Could you maybe use this video and see like, okay, he does this and this. I don't have these exact stats, but maybe I can use some of the mechanics because of that? Probably. So for that reason, I really like to show these kind of videos too. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have, like and subscribe. And see you in the next one.